My name is Paul Thompson. I'm an ecologist working at the University of Aberdeen in the School of Biological Sciences, but based up here at the Lighthouse field station in the Cromarty Firth. Why does climate change matter to me? We're already facing a huge number of global challenges: rising population, limited resources, increased social inequity, and a huge biodiversity crisis. And I think the real problem with climate change is that it exacerbates all these problems, makes them much more difficult to deal with. The work that my group's been doing helps tackle climate change in a couple of different ways. First of all, we've been conducting long-term studies of marine top predators, seals and dolphins and seabirds. And this information has helped us understand how climate variation is affecting these species and supporting efforts to manage the conservation of their populations under this changing environmental conditions. And then secondly, we've been working closely with particularly offshore renewables, trying to better understand how we can roll out a program of offshore renewable development without it impacting those important wildlife populations. Scotland's been one of the countries leading the development of offshore wind, and I think one of its main contributions has been in helping us understand how we can transition from an oil and gas economy to renewables without those large new developments adversely impacting the important protected wildlife populations that we have in our waters. And this has been done both by developing new approaches to assessing those developments and working with developers and engineers to minimise potential impacts, but also where there are uncertainties about those impacts in developing strategic monitoring and research programs, such as the work that we've been carrying out here in the Moray Firth, which have reduced uncertainties and then improved the assessment procedures so that as we scale up with those developments and move now into a period where there'll be many more offshore wind developments in Scottish waters, we can do so with an improved evidence base, which allows us to ensure that we're constructing those developments with minimal environmental impact. Well, the evidence gaps are certainly not about whether or not humans are driving climate change and whether the climate change is happening. That's really well established now. It's much more about how we can reduce that speed of change and reduce our carbon inputs, and how best to do so whilst minimising any other environmental and social impacts. And that involves both technical solutions and, of course, behavioural sciences, where we have to try and find better ways to influence us as individuals and also collectively as organisations and governments to make those changes which we know now need to happen in order to reduce the impacts that are predicted in the future. So I think my ideal outcome from COP26 would, well, first of all, obviously be fair agreements on carbon markets, but also for those of us who are hosting it in Scotland to recognise that this is a really important problem that we have a part to play in, and that actually we're pretty privileged here in that the impacts of climate change are not going to be as great on us as they are for people in many other parts of the world. So really trying to have a good, fair agreement, but also all of us recognising that individually we have a part to play in this and that we will need to make behavioural changes of our own and collectively as communities and government in order to meet this global crisis.